Are you fed up with the corporate bullshit holding you back? Welcome to Invest in Yourself, the digital entrepreneur podcast, the ultimate launchpad for entrepreneurs ready to seize control and unleash their creative genius. Hosted by Phil Better, the podcast mogul. Each week, he's breaking the chains of conventional work with bold strategies, raw insights, and inspiring success stories from the digital entrepreneurs who took the risk and invested in themselves. This is your call to arms. Invest in yourself, break free from someone else's rules, and build the empire you deserve. Now let's dive headfirst into today's explosive episode.
Welcome back to another powerful house episode of Investing in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast, hosted by the unstoppable Phil Better, your podcast mogul. Today's guest is a visionary in the digital marketing world, a leader that has dedicated his career to fighting one of the biggest threats in online advertising: ad fraud. As the co-founder and CEO of Anura, he is on a mission to help businesses maximize their ad spending by detecting and eliminating fraud cases by bots, malware, and of course, human deception. But his success doesn't stop there. With decades of experience as a serial entrepreneur, he's built and scaled businesses to extraordinary heights, including one that earned a coveted spot on the Inc. 5,000 list for 5 consecutive years. His innovation and leadership have been recognized with the prestigious Ernst and Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award in technology. And as the driving force behind one of the fastest growing advertising and marketing companies in the US, he's here to share his insight on entrepreneurship, digital security, and the future of fraud prevention in online advertising. So who is this trailblazer changing the game in ad fraud detection? Well, get ready to meet Richard Kahn. Richard, thank you so much for being here, man.
Wow, what an introduction. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I always like bringing in the guests because you guys are the superstars for this episode. I'm just the hype man, bringing on these amazing entrepreneurs who, like yourself, who have changed the game and changed the world for themselves and their families around them. So I appreciate you being here. So we're going to jump right into it, Richard. Why? Why did you go into the world of digital entrepreneurship and throw out the shackles of the corporate world?
The why. Um, well, it started, I wrote my first game. I would loved computers. I loved technology when I was young. Used to go with my father, who at the time worked for the military, and I actually got access to a mainframe computer when I was like 7 or 8 years old. And my school was one of the lucky schools. We had like the old green screen computers with the tape drives that they rolled them in. I think it was the third or fourth grade. Um, and we had an opportunity to use these computers. It was only like 4 per classroom, but if you did your classwork, if you finished your classwork up, you were allowed to use the machine. So me and a buddy of mine always finished up quick. And at age 9, I wrote my first game. Just self-taught programming and just wrote my first game. A couple years later, I got written up in Compute Gazette for code that I was writing and from new things I was putting together on some of the computer systems at the time. And I just loved technology. I even in high school, so this was in the 80s, I was on ARPANET. Most people don't know what that is, but that's the predecessor or the precursor to the internet. And it was very archaic. It was very modem style dialing computers and having computers dial actual other direct personal machines in order to communicate. And I had taken a Commodore 64, which was the popular computer back in the day. I jerry-rigged it to mount 2 modems onto it, 2 floppy drives, and we were in business. And it was amazing. You can have 2 people dial into the same bulletin board system at the time, which is today's website, and communicate with each other, swap software, share stories, blog. They had different types of chat rooms and stuff like that back then. And I was totally hooked when I was able to hook my system into the ARPANET system for email and send the email message to the California. It only took 5 days.
Hey, better than snail mail.
Yeah. Well, that was it. As computer hackers of the day, always trying to get around the system. How do you not pay for that stamp? How do you not pay long distance charges? Because remember, we had long distance charges back then.
Yeah.
People today have no idea what long distance charges are, but back then you paid if you called over a certain distance. And I was just enthralled with it. And then What got me started my first digital, and a little story before we get to the digital why. Um, in 19 from what I can see online, in September 1st of 1991, the internet got turned over to the public. I found out about it in like 93. And I'm like, wait a second, this is like ARPANET, but always on internet. Oh my God, I've got to get on this thing. So I bought my first PC, I should say. Um, Hooked it into the internet, was loving every bit of it. Now it was all command line geek stuff. There was no point and click. There was no browser. It was all command line.
I remember back then I was I was happy too. I remember the pain of the old school internet. Kids don't know how good they have it these days. Or
Oh no, it's. I mean, there was limited resources. It was slow. It was sluggish. And the modems were fast enough so that as information was being fed to you, you can read it at the same time. Like no clue, no clue. And so I started up a newsletter, and I figured I was going to. I suck at writing, but I'm going to write a newsletter. Talking about what's going on with the internet, like keeping people up to date because around me, people were asking me what was going on. So I'm like, oh, this would be a good thing to like just write all the new stuff that I'm learning about on a weekly basis and put it into a magazine. And then I trolled AOL news groups back in the day and said, hey, I'm putting together this newsletter. If you want to get a copy of it each week, just give me your email address and I'll send it to you. So it was like back then it was opt-in email. And in 6 months, I had 20,000 subscribers.
holy shit.
And it was growing. People were telling other people about it, and I had a little subscribe link where they can just send their stuff. And I had a bot that I wrote that automatically collected the email address, put it onto the list, and added it to the system. So I mean, it was pretty cool stuff for back in the day. And then all of a sudden, somebody turned around and said, "Hey, can I advertise in your newsletter?" And that started my first digital marketing company. That started off. I started growing from there. Then I decided, you know what? I want to be an ISP. I want people to connect, pay me $20 a month to connect to the internet. So I bought T1 into my house, which back then was like, it was expensive, but this is T1 digital internet access. This was like, a hacker's dream to have that kind of bandwidth in your house. But to pay for it, I put 300 phone lines in the house and sold internet services. So,
I have a
um,
question. One, how old are you at this time? And were you living at home? And what did mom and dad think of that situation of 300 phone lines?
well, no, I was married and we had bought a house. And so let's see, we were probably, this was 93, so I was 21.
Okay.
So we had just bought a house. 93, I bought that, so it was 94, so I was 22, right? That makes sense. So I was living on my own at 17. So by this time, I've been living on my own, we're comfortable with that. But, so I called up Verizon. I'm like, yeah, I want to bring in, ISDN lines is what they were called back then. Those were the digital, like your regular phone lines were analog. I wanted digital, so I brought in ISDN lines. And they said, okay, well, how much do you want? I'm like, well, I'm only going to need like 16 to start. And as we grow the business, I'll need more lines. So they said, well, we're going to give the normal pack of lines to your house. If that is that okay? I'm like, sure. I'm like, how many is it? It's 300. I'm like, you're going to put 300 phone lines in my house. I was just laughing about it. And they're like, what we need to do now is the Verizon hub that you have to connect to is a mile and a half down the street, which is perfect because you can only go up to 3 miles. Otherwise, you're not a candidate for it. We're going to bring it in. And he goes, it's just going to take about a month. And I go, what are we waiting for? He goes, we got to get the spool. I go, like, can't you go to Radio Shack for the spool? He's like, no, you don't understand. This is a custom made cable with 300 pairs of wire on it that has to be a mile and a half long from end to end. I had no idea when they rolled up with the truck with this giant spool of, I mean, this had to be like inch and a half thick cable with all these lines that had gel in it to keep them running smooth in the winters. Then then as they're wiring it up across the all the telephone wires, this was the big wire on the telephone poles. They had to resupport all the telephone poles going. I mean, it was a production. And while they were doing this, I like to tell stories, and this is a funny one. There was a deer. We were on a kind of a main road, and a deer got hit by a car, and it was still alive,
Oh,
and on our property. And I was at the time I was still working a full time job, and the cop comes out and goes to shoot the deer, and my wife yells at the cop, "You can't do that! I've got 300 phone lines underground." She's like, "I can just see this. After we had this whole thing done, the cop shoots the wire, and we have to do the whole process over again."
Yeah, that would have been insane.
Oh my God.
Oh,
That was my first ISP. I launched that in 94. And because of the modem technology that I chose, we ended up being the fastest internet on the East Coast for like 6 months, which gave us a nice little lift because a lot of people wanted bandwidth, right? And we
yeah.
had twice the speed anybody else had. So it was easy to collect clients. Um, but that was my first like true internet business where, we had like 600 or 800 clients and, we were doing website design and we were doing all kinds of funky stuff. But for me, I would get down in the basement, jump on the internet, and have blazing fast speed that nobody else had. It was awesome.
Everyone, you had fiber optic before fiber optic was a thing in those days. My God.
Well, now, so just so people, just because again, people don't understand the where the technology came from. A T1 back in the day is 1.5 megabits. If
Yeah,
you got 1.5 megabits connection on your cell phone, you'd be pissed.
yeah. No, you had super speed while everybody else was still on short speed. Nowadays, it's like everybody would be on would be like LT, and you're on 5G. Uh,
I'll give you another example. I did this for a client. A client called me up. They were having a hard. They wanted to upgrade to the new modem. She calls me up. She says, "I got a new modem. It's the one you told me to get. I don't know how to put this in the computer. Can you do it for me?" And I'm like, and I used to do house calls. So, it was just small business to be scrappy, do what you got to do. So I went to the house, installed the modem, and she says, "Well, how do I know how fast it is?" I go, "Well, typically the measurement that we use is how long does it take to download 1 megabyte of data?" Now, again, you open up an email, it's several megabytes, and it happens in a split second. You don't think twice about it. You download a DVD of 4 gigs of data, and it's happens in a couple of minutes. You don't think about it. But what was impressive back then was to download a single megabyte of data in 10 minutes.
yeah. Oh my
That was
God. You're
speed.
bringing flashbacks, PTSD flashbacks with people don't understand. We had to hook up to the internet through the telephone line. So you had the most annoying sound that I think any Gen Xer and millennial will ever hear. It still brings PTSD to us. It's the worst sound ever. But
You'll have to add that in here somewhere.
oh yeah, I'm just gonna pause and just here enjoy the sound of my people. I want to know. Okay, so after you did the ISP, you're an internet selling internet to people, doing the house calls, scrappy. When did you end up selling that? Did you end up closing that business? How
It
did
was very easy. It was a very easy decision for me. We were in upstate New York, and the cable company announced the Roadrunner. I don't know if you guys remember. Time Warner came out with the Roadrunner, which was cable modem,
Mhm.
and it was promising to be 10 times faster than my internet connection. And I knew my clients came to me for speed, and I knew my clients would leave me for speed. So I thought this was a good time to get out. So I actually found a publicly traded company, told them I'm looking to sell. They basically in the middle of the night came, took the server, onboarded all the customers, migrated the phone numbers over, did a whole 9 year. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was enough money to pay off all the bill and any bills that we had. And me and my partner were able to split, like 75 grand. Like I said, it wasn't a whole lot of money, but it was a great project, great learning experience. And I got out just because I knew dial-up was dying, and I didn't want to be in a dying business. I wanted to get out when I can make a few bucks on it. So it wasn't a big thing. Um, but that's when I
for a
got out.
20 for a 22-year-old starting their own internet business when the internet wasn't even the internet as we know it, that's huge. Even if you walked away with 75K afterwards, that's huge for like a first-time business owner selling their business, who started from nothing, especially back in the day when the internet was
Nothing.
was was nothing pretty much. Nowadays, yeah, 75 is like what the low end of people are selling businesses for, but it's still impressive for someone so young to close a business, that start a business and end up selling it for so much. What was the next step after you've taken all this knowledge that from making websites, doing crazy things, house calls, building an internet company? What was your next step?
Well, I had a couple other companies in between, and let's see, one of them, uh, some of the crowd might remember this, but there was a company called All Advantage back in the day that would basically pay you to surf the internet. They would put an application on your desktop, rotate banners, and they would pay you 50 cents an hour to basically have these banners rotated in front. They would basically pay you percentage of the ad revenue they were making off this banner. And now I had a company at the time, we were the third largest in the space, it was called Paid for Surf. And This was like the typical .com dream. We launched in December of '99, and I remember sitting there. I was still working a full-time job at this time. I was working for Bloomberg in Manhattan, and my partner was at home. He we used to work there with us, but he had left took another job somewhere, and he happened to be home the day we launched the product. And I want to say we launched it December 17th or December 19th of '99. No, I don't know, 2000, whatever, right around that date. So it was 2000 or '99, and it was probably '99, and the first like we launched it, and I said, okay, I'm going to email a list of people that I've been friends with and stuff that might be able to help us out with getting some subscribers. And the pitch was, download this application, we'll pay you a percentage of our business. If you refer somebody, every hour they spend online, we'll pay you a piece of that too. And we did it like 5 levels deep, so it's like kind of like multi-level marketing.
Yeah.
But the idea was you could be making a few $100 a month doing this thing. So we launched it. I hit a couple people that I knew, and my friend would call me like every 2 minutes. Nobody yet. Nobody yet. And then all of a sudden lunch hit. Oh my God, we got our first 3 subscribers. And then all of a sudden he'd call me back. We got 20. Oh my God, we got 50, 100. By the end of the day, we had 509 subscribers in the first day. Long story short, we ended up hitting our millionth subscriber in like 9 months, which by the way is faster than Netflix got to their first million, just to give you a scale. And again, this is when the internet was a lot smaller. And that first month, we made $130,000 with a total of $30,000 in expenses. It was life changing. That's when I quit my job and went full time doing this thing. And so that was December of '99, March of 2000. So you're talking like 3 to 4 months later, we had a deal on the table for $60 million.
Holy
This company. This company was only doing a couple $100,000 a month at that time, but we had some really cool technology that we had designed and built that would still work today. And we had bought a lot of servers and prepping for this new thing that we were going to build that was going to be phenomenal. And we actually had people. We got written up in Wired magazine. I think in February that year, we had somebody. One of our members was a college student making like $2,000 a month running our application because he was referring so many people. So I mean, it was growing fast. It was like out of control. It was awesome. It was just like getting away from you. And all of a sudden, you get this $60 million deal thrown at you. You're like, holy shit, what the hell? So by time we were able to get all the lawyers and the accountants and everybody, because I think the offer came in January. It happened really quick. Right after we launched the company, we hit our first, 130,000 in business. The offer came in, a couple months to settle things down, and the company was growing so fast that they couldn't keep up with the offer, that they keep having to change their offer to keep up with the value of the company.
Yeah.
And so we had a date settled, April 28th of 2000. I'll never forget, right? Because April 14th is when the .com bubble burst and took the deal off the table.
Oh,
So,
I was going to ask about like how did the .com bubble hit you?
oh, it hit hard.
Oh yeah, that's a hard hit.
It hit hard, and it took the deal off the table. But I remember, like, I have a really good memory for remembering my feelings in given situations. And my feeling at the time was, okay, it's not a big deal because we're making so much money right now. It makes no difference, right? We're just we just keep growing it and growing it. And then eventually, because the .com bubble dried up, all the marketing that was spending that was supporting the application dried up, and we eventually shut it down. But then we spun it into another company. Well, we started up another company. So what happened was my partner went off because we didn't live close to each other. I used to commute to Manhattan every day for Bloomberg, so that's how we met. But I lived upstate and he lived in Brooklyn, and he went off and started a company. I went off and started a company, trying to put the company together. Mine was going to be encrypted instant messaging, which we all have today, but the one I built was a 4096-bit rotating algorithm encryption that I got called by the NSA that if I release this and my technology gets outside the country, I'm going to be held responsible for all communication that happens that they can't decrypt.
Makes sense to maybe not to go down that route when you get called from the big brother.
So I remember the first text message that me and my developer sent back and forth and said, "Hello world," which is traditional for programming. And I said, "We're not going to do this." I am not taking a chance on, God forbid, losing the keys, because the whole idea behind it is that the keys were destroyed once the connection was built, so that you couldn't decrypt it. It was, the whole thing was to be heavily encrypted, and yeah, the government didn't like that. So
Oh, I can see the government maybe not being a fan of unable to decrypt something that they need to get access to. Oh my God.
it was interesting. So then my friend started a company, which was a company that was doing this display advertising, which is obviously one of the biggest channels of marketing out there. And he couldn't get it off the ground. So he said, "Hey, we got the pieces of the puzzle together. We just need somebody to really get in and give it some
Clean.
legs and make
Yeah.
some money, right? Get it off the ground." So we sat down, we looked at it. I'm like, "Okay, let's do it." So we did. We got it off the ground. And a year later, I had a deal on the table for 30 million. So I'm like, "All right, there's four of us in the company. 30 million is a great deal. We're at the time maybe 30 years old. The $60 million deal, I was 28. This 30 million deal, I think it was 30, 31, something like that. And all cash. I shook hands with the buyer. Like we went through the whole process, had an M&A bank set everything up, and all the records were audited. We were ready to go. And then there was four partners. Two of them were brothers, and they fought about everything. And they fought about the dumbest stuff. And I'm like, dude, if we scare, I mean, you're going to scare away the bank, you're going to scare away the buyer, and you're going to be broke. Or you can wrap that up, stop fighting about all this nonsense. Let's get the deal done, and then you can fight and be rich. Rather be rich and fight it than
That's
poor.
a much better life.
But unfortunately, it scared everything away. So eventually, me and my other partner left the company, started another company. Well, actually, I started a company with my wife in the process of all this. Um, and that was in 2003. So once we got the guts started up, I did kind of the same thing with my friend. I said, "Okay, I've got another company. Why don't you join us? And everything's ready. We just got to put our heads together and make it work." And that was a company called Ezanga, which that's the company that was on the Inc. 5000 5 years in a row. That was the company that I got the Ernst& Young Entrepreneur of the Year for technology in 2010. That company did 100 million in sales over the course of its lifetime, 20 years. So about 5 million a year average. So not a big company, but not a small company either. We took that to market in 2014, and I spoke to Facebook, Google, Yahoo, Microsoft, and about a half a dozen other big companies. And it was like they all read from the same script. They said, "We don't care about your ad network. It's been done, right? But what we care about is the fraud detection technology that you built inside the company. Let's talk more about that." So we went into a conversation, and then they all asked the same two freaking questions. One, is it a standalone product? And two, do you have clients behind it? And I had to say no to both. And I said, "But I can do that real easily." And they said, "Well, go do that and then call us back." So I went and did that. So we launched another company. We first did some heavy testing on the product. We took 100,000 of my own cash, spent it on advertising, and what I did was I ran it through a sales funnel, and I had my technology and three or four other of the top ad fraud solutions in the market at the same time, and I had them grade the traffic 100%, all the same. So they all grade every visitor the same way.
Mhm.
I stored that data, and then I went back and human verified all the results, and then went back and said, "Okay, who was right, who was wrong?" And we crushed the competition. I wasn't even close, like every single time. And I remember running the first test. I spent like 35, 40 grand. My team came back. They knew what they had to do. And they're like, "Look, we did it. We beat them." And I'm like, "You know what? Run it again. Different metrics, just run it again." And then they ran the numbers, came back. "Yeah, we're still doing it. We're still crushing." I'm like, "Run it again." I'm like, "Wait a second. Why are you telling me this?" Because I know what's going to happen. If we really do have a better product, I'm going to have to go get a second mortgage on my house, go build a whole nother company. I mean, I know what's coming for me. And right now, if I want to, I could retire. But this product, if it's that good, I can't walk away from it. I'm still young enough that I want to build this out. So sure enough, we ran the third test, came back and crushed it. So we basically 2 years later, I think that was 2014, no 15, and by 2017 we had the whole thing buttoned up. professional, set up, ready to rock and roll. In April 1st of 2017, we launched Anura as a standalone fraud detection solution.
That's insane. My God. So I want to know how how much of a problem is fraud in the digital advertising world? Like how big is it?
I'm glad you asked. I just sat down with my team and we were finalizing the numbers for our fraud report for 2024. So it's a 2025 report based on 2024 data, and there's a lot of data in there, a lot of numbers and stuff like that. But the big number is last year, $140 billion was stolen from advertisers due to fraud.
Oh. And we're talking from everybody from mom to pops who are putting probably a couple $100 into the mega guys like Google slamming billions of dollars down for advertising. They're all getting hosed by fraud.
Yeah, and it's like it's sick. Like, and like I said, a lot of people that we talk to are coming to us not don't even they're not even aware of the problem that the internet advertising industry is so dirty. The average person has no clue. And some people know, okay, I'm the conversions aren't where they should be, or I'm getting some weird behavior, or I get a lot of people dropping filling stuff in the shopping cart and dropping yeah, that's all fraud. And there's a way to mitigate it. And at this day and age, you know, it's hard. Like if you're trying to go at it yourself,
Wish you
dude,
the best of luck.
my God, I tell people. I had somebody yesterday said, "Well, we have some smart people here. We can do it ourselves." I said, "Okay, let's talk about it." You're going to need a team of at least three, right? You're going to need a database guy, you need an algorithms guy, and you need a UI guy to build this out for you and build it right. And I go, and all three of them will cross over in their technology. They're going to have to help each other out. And they said, okay, that sounds about right. So that's three people. Then you need a database infrastructure with a data lake so that you can just take all the data that you're going to start having to collect. You're going to have to figure out what kind of data to collect, how to analyze that data, and test your analytics to make sure you're doing it right, and double check it against your back end data and all that stuff. I'm like, okay, do all that. I said, I've been doing that already for the last 20 years. And a solution like us costs you less than a single individual. So, just it's license. It's not the old saying license, build or buy. This in this situation, you're way behind the eight ball. Unless, of course, you want to build, a fraud product and go out to the market and
Yeah.
sell it. But if you're doing it for yourself, it's just more cost effective to just license a product that already does the job and has proven success. But it's crazy. I mean, with AI, I mean, you can go right now dark web and download something called Fraud GPT, and Fraud GPT will actually build you the bot.
My God. Okay. We're gonna leave that. We're not gonna go down that route. We're gonna stay more onto the white hat.
Wait, that was question one, right?
Yeah. That was question one. How big of a problem is it? Apparently it's huge. And obviously you've been a developer since like 9 years old when you built your first video game. Um, this is I what how do you how do you stay ahead? Like how do you invest in yourself to make sure that you're always near the cutting edge of information? Because obviously back when the internet was small, it was pretty easy. There wasn't that much not all websites saying, "Hey, this is what's coming out on the internet." There was like maybe one.
It wasn't a YouTube video for something.
Yeah, there wasn't a YouTube video. It was literally emailing, finding message boards. I remember websites having little boards and all that, and now we're on Facebook. So how do you keep staying ahead? How do you invest in yourself to make sure that you're not only for staying ahead in the fraud, but also in business, making sure that you are the best version of yourself going forward?
Well, I haven't done a lot. I've done this over the years, but I haven't done it more consistently than I just recently started. So reading books, and that is for running a company, not for what we do specifically. For what we do, I developed a methodology for fraud detection. Uh, the concept really started when I started version one, which was basically 2005. So it took them 20 years ago. And that same theology works today. I have a team of people around me that help maintain that, and new technology that we've added on top of the methodology. But at this point, it's at a situation where it's like clockwork. We have it down to a science. We know what we're doing. We know how to look for it. We know where it is. We even have customer feedback on data, so we have a feedback loop, so they could give us additional data, things that we may not be able to see. I always tell people like they're like, "What do you mean? What can't you see?" I said, "Well, I get to see the visitor for a second, and I got to tell my customer it's fraud or not, and I only get 1 second." But like Gaijin, it's a big gaming company out of Germany. They're known for War Thunder, one of our clients, and they actually have when somebody logs into the system, they have us protect their login. But once they log in, they have all that rich data of user behavior and play in the game, and they might be able to identify something that we're not seeing initially. So if they find something that later on down the road, they can always say, "Hey, I found something. Give us some basic point us in the right direction. We'll figure out what it is that we might have missed and build something else on top of it." So we get feedback. It's not just us as our clients. We're actually partners with our clients to be able to do this and make sure they have the best product. Because every time, a threat comes in to attack one of our clients, it's a fix for all.
Yeah. I love that. I love that feedback where it's not just, hey, yeah, we're just giving you this service. No, we're working together to make sure that you're protected 100%. Plus, you're helping us protect others in the industry as well, doing
Yeah.
these threats. I love that partnership reality. A rising tide lifts all ships. Um, where do you see yourself? Because you've started and launched multiple businesses, very successful businesses. Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
On a beach. No, actually, it's, so 10 years from now puts me in my 60s. Um,
Didn't mean
I
to age you there.
yeah, where like I said, I have just so we know, I had my first grandchild 7 months ago. I have another one due any minute.
Yep.
So I can see myself spending a lot more time. I'm also a private pilot, love flying. So want to do more traveling. Like right now, I do spend a lot of time at the office, probably 60 hours a week at the office. And then this year we're doing 18 trade shows. So that's a trade show like every 3 weeks for the most part. So it'll be a lot of traveling and stuff because we're getting gearing it up to a certain level so that I'm getting all the right players on the team that are doing the right job so I can step back and start spending less time, spend a little more time with the grandkids. But 10 years from now, assuming I'm still running this business, if I haven't, decided to sell it or bring on a partner or do something with it, um, I see myself obviously not having to be there 40 hours a week, 50 hours a week. But I might be doing consulting work for new entrepreneurs that are starting up businesses. A lot of people that build a company and build successful companies to keep busy as they get older, um, do a lot of consulting work, like with new businesses and stuff like that. I could see that being fun because, like, okay, I come up with a great idea, and then yeah, I'm one of the guys down in the weeds working on this code, working on different things and busting my hump to get it done. It'd be a lot easier to turn around and just tell someone, you know what would be a great idea for your business, this, that, and the other thing. They all buy into it, and then I come back in a month and see if they built it.
I
That's
said
it.
if
That's
you need
a
to,
lot of fun.
you can help a little bit.
Yeah, I can point them in the right direction, but I don't have to be the one to physically do the work.
Yeah, the consulting business is a very great business. Um, Rich, you are a treasure trove of knowledge that I just want to continue mining, but I'm very cognitive that at any moment now you're going to get the call that you're going to have to leave. So I'm going to hit you with our last question to wrap this up. I have your 10-year-old self here. He just finished programming his first video game. He's excited. What advice do you want to give back to that 10-year-old self?
It's funny. Business wise, I wouldn't, everyone always looks at like, because you see them all the time, like, like a Gates or an Elon Musk, or you see these guys that are just amazing, like geniuses, billionaires. That was never a dream for me. I grew up on welfare when I was young. I didn't know it at the time, but I would go to school, I'd get free lunch, didn't know why. Found out later on it was because, we didn't have a lot of money and was on welfare, and that's where it was. So my dream was never to be a billionaire. Like I never had a desire to, because I mean, look at Elon Musk. He works, I think he says 12-hour days, 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I don't want that. I'm not that ambitious. Um, but you know, so there's been a lot of things like in my life that were different. Were I'll give you an example. So like I was really good at football, and I joined the football team in high school because I was playing football at one of the camps, and I was crushing the football team that was on the camps because I was fast and I was hard. I was a big kid and hard to knock down. And gymnastics came along, and I'm like, you know what? That'd be something different. Um, so I joined gymnastics team, but it's all upper body strength, which I don't have much of. I have a lot of leg strength, which is better for football, and I should have probably stayed that. So, I made these weird decisions. So if I'm telling my younger self, really pay attention to the decisions. Like I was big in martial arts. That's why I did whatchamacallit, gymnastics. So I thought mixing the gymnastics with martial arts would be great. And in fact, I was actually invited to the 2000 Olympics to compete in martial arts. But at the time, I just had my second child. We just bought a house. I got my first big boy job. And I'm like, I don't want to give all this up, and sometimes take a chance. Like, that's probably what I would tell myself is be a little more risk taker. Like, I know my father calls me a risk taker because of things that I do, like packed up the whole family. We lived in New York, moved down to Delaware with no job. But to me, that wasn't risky because I'm like, I'm between five majors. Like, to me, most of the decisions that I made were calculated decisions. I didn't really take a lot of risk. Look at Elon Musk, almost went bankrupt building SpaceX. Yeah. He said he was down to his last few dollars, and he scraped together enough to get that last rocket off the ground. And thankfully, the rocket was successful. Otherwise, he would have been done. He would have been broken. Probably not heard of him. But it's taking those risks, taking those chances. Don't be afraid to bet on yourself.
Love that. That's a great advice for any age, 10 to 90 years old, always willing to take that bet on yourself. Rich, I'm going to jump off the screen here. I want you to let my audience know if they're looking, maybe you can start your consulting business a little earlier. Maybe not wait 10 years, maybe start now planting the seeds. Let my audience know where they can connect with you, maybe even work with you, or if they're looking for someone to take care of their fraud ad spending, to watch out for that, how they can get in contact with you. So the floor, sir, is yours.
Sure. I'm easy to contact if you want to reach me. LinkedIn is the best place to get me. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm posting videos a couple times a week. But if you want to reach out to me and get with me directly, LinkedIn's the easiest way to get to me. And then if you guys are looking for fraud detection services, we're happy to do a free audit of your traffic, find out how much fraud you're dealing with first and where it's coming from. And just go to Anura.io. We have a talk to an expert button right there. Just click the button, fill out the form, and book an appointment to talk to one of our people. And we'll be happy to walk you through the process and how it works, and hopefully solve the problem if that's the problem that you're having.
I love it. Rich, I want to thank you again for being here. I love your stories. Again, congratulations on the new child that is coming into your life, the new grandbaby. I know how wonderful it is for grandparents to see a newborn. So thank you very much for fitting us in during this time. So I want to thank you again for being here.
Awesome. I appreciate it.
To my audience, make sure you check out the show notes down below to connect with Rich and get that free audit. If you are spending money on advertising, I want to make sure you're not losing it to fraudsters. I want to thank you so much for listening. Remember to always invest in yourself.
Thanks for joining us on Invest in Yourself, the Digital Entrepreneur Podcast. The podcast mogul reminds you that your journey to freedom and success starts with one powerful move: investing in yourself. If today's episode sparked your fire, hit that follow button on Spotify and drop us a comment. Share your wins, your challenges, and what drives you to break free from the corporate grind. Remember, you're your best investment. Always invest in yourself because your potential is limitless. Until next time, keep hustling and take control of your destiny.